Marie Curie. You hear that name and you think genius, right? Perseverance, game-changing science. But her story, and the story of her most famous discovery, radium, well, it's way more complex than you probably think. It's a tale of incredible highs and just devastating lows, all centered on an element that could both heal and kill. So let's get into it.
So this is the big question, right? This is the paradox we're digging into. How did one single discovery end up being both a miracle cure for cancer and a deadly poison? To get it, you first have to understand the contradictions that define the life of the woman who found it.
Because Marie Curie was living in two different realities. On one hand, she was a global scientific superstar, an absolute icon. But on the other, she was a total outsider, a woman, an immigrant, constantly having to fight for her place in a system that was basically built to keep people like her out.
I mean, just look at this list of accomplishments. It's staggering. She was the first woman to ever win a Nobel Prize. Then she became the only woman to win a second one. And to this day, she's still the only person, man or woman, to win in two different scientific fields. She came up with the word radioactivity, discovered not one but two new elements, and smashed barriers to become the first female professor at the Sorbonne. An absolute giant.
And yet, in the very same year, she won her second Nobel Prize. The French Academy of Sciences, the supposed pinnacle of science in France, rejected her. It's just this shocking gut punch that shows you the kind of prejudice she was up against every single day.
So let's talk about the science that made her famous. Because Curie's work didn't just add a little something to what we knew. No, it completely shattered our old understanding of the universe. She proved that the atom was not the smallest thing, that there was a whole secret world inside.
And the concept she pioneered was radioactivity. She's the one who gave it its name. This totally bizarre new phenomenon where certain elements were just spontaneously pouring out energy. It was a complete mystery, and she was absolutely determined to figure it out.
And the pace was just breathtaking. She gets inspired by Henri Becquerel's work in 1896, and just 2 years later, she and her husband Pierre had discovered two new, much more powerful elements, polonium, which she named for her home country of Poland, and of course, the star of our show, radium. By 1903, she's a Nobel laureate, and by 1911, she does it again, this time all by herself.
But here's the thing. Running right alongside all these scientific breakthroughs was this constant, brutal fight against personal attacks. The same establishment that celebrated her genius was often trying to tear her down as a person.
28 to 27. Can you believe that? She lost her spot in the French Academy by a single vote, and it had nothing to do with her science. It was all politics. You had people arguing that a woman's place was in the home, not the academy, using her gender and her Polish roots as weapons against her.
The disconnect is just wild. On one side, you have these undeniable facts. She's the world's leading expert in her field, a 2-time Nobel winner. On the other side, the press is dragging her through the mud, calling her a foreign homewrecker because of a rumored affair after her husband's death. They even tried to pressure her into not showing up for her own Nobel ceremony. And Curie herself knew exactly what was going on. She saw it clearly. She believed that once you were labeled a woman or a foreigner, the facts didn't matter anymore. People would just assume the worst, and all her incredible achievements would get filtered through this lens of personal gossip.
Which brings us right back to her greatest discovery, radium. Because just like the woman who found it, the element itself was going to lead a double life, one of incredible promise and one of just immense danger.
Okay, so here is the absolute key to understanding all of this. Radium is a chemical chameleon. In the body, it basically pretends to be calcium. And because our bodies are constantly using calcium to build our bones, they see radium and go, "Hey, I know you," and pull it right into our skeleton. This one simple act of mimicry, it's the source of all of its power, for both good and for evil.
Let's start with the miracle. During World War I, Curie put her science to work, creating mobile X-ray units powered by radium, they called them little Curies, that helped save countless wounded soldiers. Fast forward to today, and that legacy lives on in a super sophisticated way. An isotope, radium-223, is an FDA-approved cancer therapy. Because it acts like calcium, it's like a heat-seeking missile for bone cancer. It goes right to the tumors and delivers a targeted blast of radiation that kills the cancer cells while leaving most of the healthy tissue alone.
And here you can see exactly how that works.
This scan shows bone cancer that's spread. Once the radium-223 is injected, it zeroes in on those tumors. Then, at a molecular level, the radium atoms start firing off these heavy-duty alpha particles. These things are like tiny wrecking balls that smash the cancer cell's DNA, killing it from the inside out. It's an incredibly precise, powerful weapon.
But now, we have to talk about the menace. In the 1920s, companies hired hundreds of young women for what seemed like a dream job, painting the dials of watches with glowing, radium-based paint. The pay was great, the work seemed glamorous, and they were told over and over again that the paint was totally harmless. They became known as the Radium Girls.
So to get a nice fine point on their paintbrushes, their supervisors told them to lick the tips, a technique called lip pointing. And just like we saw with the cancer therapy, that ingested radium went straight to their bones. But this wasn't a single, controlled, life-saving dose. This was a slow, creeping poison that built up for years, causing their bones to literally rot from the inside out, leading to horrific cancers and agonizing deaths.
And in the final tragic irony of this whole story, the discoverer became a victim. Marie Curie's decades of working with this stuff with basically no protection finally took its toll. She died in 1934 from aplastic anemia, a disease of the bone marrow almost certainly caused by her lifelong exposure to radiation.
So we're left with this really unstable legacy. It's the story of a brilliant scientist who is both celebrated and shunned, and of an element that she brought into the world that holds the power to both save us and destroy us. And, maybe this quote from Curie herself is the best way to think about it all. Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Her whole life was a testament to that idea, that knowledge is the antidote to fear. She just relentlessly pursued understanding, whether it was the secrets of the atom or the injustices of her own time.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty vital question. If a mind as brilliant as Marie Curie's was nearly blocked by prejudice, how many others have been? Whose potential discoveries, whose cures, whose revolutions in understanding will we never even get to see, simply because we failed to look past our own biases?